Post-Promotion Automation and Analytics. I'm your host today, Karen Kurzweil, and I welcome you to contact myself or Rob York after the webinar to request any additional information on our white papers, future webinars, software, and services. Okay, before we get started, I'd like to give you just a few housekeeping instructions. First, we have muted all participants, but it's also helpful to ask you to put your line on mute as well, since headphones and other devices sometimes still cause static. Second, we have activated the chat, so please feel to ask questions. We will wait until the end of the presentation to address those as time permits. Last, today's presentation will be recorded and available for you on our YouTube channel under Relational Solutions. Our presenter today is Rob York. Rob has planned to keep this webinar to 30 minutes. However, there's a lot of ground to cover, so we will leave it open to try and address all pertinent issues. Rob has over 20 years of experience in information technology and data warehousing best practices. In 1996, he founded Relational Solutions and co-owns the company with Janet Dorncott. Rob's career in data analytics and automation has driven him to become a recognized thought leader in the business intelligence industry. Relational Solutions has implemented data warehouses and business intelligence solutions since 1996. The complex issues associated with integrating point-of-sale and syndicated data led them to their focus on the consumer goods industry, where they've developed applications including POS Smart and Blue Sky, which are designed for handling data complexities that are unique to CPG companies. Relational Solutions has been recognized as leaders in the area of data integration and business intelligence. They have won numerous awards and have published success stories. They've conducted classes for large software companies as well as customers and have been involved in over 200 data warehouse and business intelligence projects, including implementations for Chrysler, Chase Manhattan Bank, Timken Industries, Xerox, and several others. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Rob to talk to you about post-promotion analytics. Rob, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to try to make this as worthwhile as possible in a little less than 30 minutes. There's a few things that I'm going to cover today that are important. We have an industry overview, including who Relational Solutions is. Today's challenge in the promotion and trade spend area. Also, the importance of automating a historically manual process and getting to the most important aspect of it, and that's return on investment analytics for all of your trade spend needs. So a little background on Relational Solutions. As Karen mentioned, we've been around since 1996. We've been in the business for over 17 years now. We started out building big data warehouses for Chrysler, Xerox, Timken Industries, and a lot of those types of companies. We had our first release of POS Smart in the early 2000s, and we started to see some commonality amongst CPG companies and their needs and requirements to integrate all of this, third-party disparate data with their internal data, which led us to acquire a company for our Blue Sky Integration Studio product that does all of the integration. In the late 2000s, we were in the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies 2 years in a row. We also won numerous CGT awards over the years. So let's just get right into it. Trade spend is typically 15 to 20% of a company's gross revenue. So basically, this chart is showing that trade spend is the #1 priority in corporate America today in the CPG industry. So it has the highest spend priority, and it's the second highest corporate expense next to cost of goods sold. What is post-event automation and analytics? It is trade optimization that's not purely an exercise in advanced statistical models, but also an enterprise-wide agreement on processes and metrics. So statistical models are great, but if you can only apply them to 5 to 10% of trade spend, you're missing 90 to 95% of everything that's going on out there. And that's the problem with just looking at it from a statistical model standpoint. It's very complex, and it's very difficult to mold the data into those models today. So we think it's best defined as a framework that applies advanced calculations to multiple downstream data sources to shift the promotion planning process from an art to a science, such that supply and demand can more effectively be met. So rather than having a Mona Lisa spreadsheet or spreadsheets all over the place, we want to automate it and shift it from that art to an actual science. The industry challenge, and I think most of us have seen this, it's what we call spreadsheet hell. What we're trying to do is avoid the costly manual process of harmonizing the disparate data. So what we're seeing out there is 80 to 90% of analysts' time is spent gathering, collating, integrating all of this disparate data only to put it into spreadsheets. And they have to redo it all over again every time you want to run those analytics. So you have data silos and Mona Lisa spreadsheets that are running your business. Little time is then spent analyzing the data. Then you have the inability to optimize trade spend across all retail segments. So what you want to be able to do is say, you know, I want to take a look at all of the trade spend we have. Anywhere money is spent, I want to look at it. Well, in today's world, without an automated system, you can't do that. There's not enough time in the day and not enough resources in the company to do something like that. In addition, it's difficult to align trade funds with the actual consumer events. We're going to get into that in a few minutes, but this leads to inaccurate results and costly decisions. So you're planning, you know, whether you're using like a Promax, a CAS, CBOL, those plans need to be aligned with the actual consumption and shipments. Also, you need to understand how the blending of your various EDLP rates are working. And then you have to calculate grouped event ROI. And by grouped event, we mean with the retail event. And again, that's something we're going to discuss in a few minutes. This all leads to the inability to execute. So you're going to have lost revenue and profit. That's a certainty because you're basically operating blindly. And importantly, just as importantly, the inability to interpret results both to the retailer and internally. So case study example 1 is pricing tactics. A CPG company needs to understand which promotional tactics are best suited to which product categories and retail channels. So here we're looking at the food channel, and we have products that are greater than $5, products that are less than $5. We're looking at them by display, temporary price reduction, and feature ad. Notice how consumers are reluctant to buy items on display or at temporary price reductions for the higher priced items. So those tactics are really not a great strategy if your product is over $5, at least for the display and temporary price reduction. Feature, it's not too bad. You're actually doing pretty well there compared to the others. But for these two, you're substantially below. So does that mean all price reductions and displays are failures? Do you know which ones are successful? This is a very generalized chart. This was provided by Nielsen. So this is telling us that, okay, it doesn't look like price reductions and displays are a fantastic idea, but some of them could be actually performing very well, while others may not be. Do I know that by looking at this? No, I don't. This is, I need to dig in deeper. Example 2, channel tactics. You want to measure the effectiveness of promotions that will allow you to direct funds to the most effective promotional events and avoid the pitfalls of blindly investing into ineffective promotional tactics. Now, what we see out there is companies that just continue to invest in the same promotions year over year without knowing the results of those promotions. It's just blindly investing. And in this example, we're looking at 3 different retail channels: food, drug, and mass. And we're going to highlight the drug channel. So we're looking at both a feature ad and an in-store display. Well, notice how the feature ad seems to be working out pretty well. the in-store display for the drug channel does not work out too well. So the chart depicts the difference in how consumers react to that feature ad versus the in-store display by retail channel. Drug channel, feature ads are considerably more effective than in-store displays versus food channel. So how much is it costing us to keep running these poor performing events? So, key benefits with an automated system. It increases the coverage. So we're not looking at just a few accounts, maybe, a few promoted product groups in a few accounts. We're looking at all places where money is spent. We want to increase the return on investment across all retail accounts. We also want to align actual results to the plans. So we want to put them side by side and understand the accuracy of the plans. And the only way to do that is to make sure that they are, in fact, aligned. And we're going to get into that in a few minutes. So we have to understand the performance versus the expectations, and also the impact of shipments. Did they arrive on time? Did we ship too much? Did we ship too little? Product freshness is always a concern. What's the turnover on products? And the competitive impact. So we need to understand whether a competitor is running promotions at the same time. Were ours still successful? Were theirs more successful? How does our product affect the entire category? What may have been a big win for us was not such a win for the retailer. Perhaps the category dropped when our product went on sale, something that we need to understand. So what makes up a post-event automation and analytics solution? Well, we're going to start with the data sources because this is the more complex part of the system. We're going to have planning data, shipments, consumption. Now, consumption can come from a variety of sources. It can come directly from the retailer. It can come from syndicated data providers such as IRI and AC Nielsen. It can even come from a company like Retail Solutions. Also, we're going to have to incorporate master data, likely forecast data, and also cost of goods sold. So we need to understand return on investment. We need to understand return on investment the whole way up, including cost of goods sold. The automated system will harmonize this, integrate it, and put it into a trade spend database that at this point in time is ready for reporting and analytics. So right now, once we get it in there and it's all nicely harmonized, the analytics can begin. Now, this will also be completely automated so that the next time we receive data feeds, it flows right through. One thing we need to be aware of, though, is to align the plans with the actual promotional event. And again, that's something we're going to talk about in more detail in just a minute, but that's really important. So for the most part, the system will align those for you. So there is some intelligence into the system. However, there's going to be cases where you're going to want to go in and make some certain adjustments to it. That's where the event alignment tool comes in. That would be the only manual process that will take place in this entire implementation. Once you have that, you can do all the analysis you want. So at that point, all of your standardized reports, ad hoc analysis, everything is going full bore. And now you can optimize your plans for next year and even for this year if you want to tweak those plans. So what is the event alignment? That's where event alignment is where we're aligning the promotions with the actual retail event. So this allows trade managers, and by trade managers, that's kind of a generalized term. It could be sales reps. It could be financial salespeople. It could be the salespeople themselves. Every company is a little bit different, but it allows you to modify the dates so that the events and plans align. So a lot of times when you're doing your planning, it's great. You're going to start the event on July 1st. It's going to run till the 7th. But in reality, when you see the consumption spike didn't happen until July 3rd. Something happened. Let's realign the plan to the actual event so the plan actually started July 3rd in alignment with the plan. So now I'm measuring those results accurately. The other important aspect of this is having an audit trail so that I know who made changes, when they made them, and why they made them. So in our system, our event alignment tool, we have a complete audit trail, and if you ever need to go back, you can go back to a previous state. So let's look at an example here. What does this mean, this whole alignment thing? So we're going to take a July 4th hot dog bun promotion, and part of this alignment process is to say, okay, I've got certain tactics here. I'm looking at a temporary price reduction, a feature ad, an in-store display, and a circular. All of these tactics make up the July 4th hot dog bun promotion. So I need to be able to look at this by each one of these individually and also rolled up to the actual retail event, which is all of these together. So the event alignment tool does that. So not only does it align the dates with the plans and the actuals, it also allows you to then align the tactics to the actual retail event so you can see how it performed as a whole. And this is an example of a user interface. So you notice in this example we have 4 key performance indicators. This allows me to take a look and say, okay, this needs to be aligned, this doesn't need to be aligned. I can then go in and do some overrides in here on dates. You know, whatever needs to be adjusted, I can adjust. I just save it, and it goes right into the database, and it's pretty much near real time. So now all of the reports then reflect any of the changes I made. Once those are in there, what we're going to need to do is to be able to report at all relevant hierarchy levels. So what that means is I want to be able to report on the tactics individually, the retail event as a whole, and at the customer or even the product grouping. So, for example, I may have Delhaize that has Food Line and Hannaford. I want to look at how the events performed at each one of those, and then rolled up to the actual corporate customer. I also want to see how it performed within the planning group itself, also at the brand, sub-brand, even category levels. So all of these levels, you know, I'm going to want to take a look at how those hot dog buns performed. So, you know, how did the feature, display, and circular do? How did it do as a whole? How did it perform at Food Lion? How did it perform at Delhaize? How did it perform at Kroger? Wherever. And I can even then compare it to other things like, say, I have another promotion for rolls or for biscuits. Did it affect those? Did it hurt those? Did it help it? I'm going to be able to do all of that within the system. Now, in a typical data warehousing world, that all sounds nice and easy, actually, because, you know, most things like revenue and units sold are all summed up nicely. Can't do that with ROI. ROI is a percentage. You cannot sum percentages. That'll be very, very inaccurate. You can't do averages either. It's inaccurate. It has to be recalculated at every level of the hierarchy for it to be accurate. So in our world, in our system, all of that is done automatically so that in your world, you'll be able to easily report off of it. But this is not an easy task, and it makes it quite a bit different than a typical data warehouse. So the important part of this is of course, the data harmonization. Firstly, we want to leverage current investments. So when you look at the data harmonization, you need to look at the sources here. And it's important to understand where they're coming from, you know, how well are they, how clean are they. So if you have a data warehouse, that you typically have a leg up because a lot of the master data has already been cleaned up. Also, if you're invested in syndicated data, obviously we want to take advantage of those investments. We then want to have consistent processes for harmonizing the data. So syndicated data will not completely align with, say, your shipment data. It won't align with necessarily the retailer downstream POS data. All right, so that all needs to be upfront defined, aligned, harmonized, integrated. along with your planning information, your forecasts, and your master data. It's not an easy task. And again, it's being done across all retail segments. And then best practices. So best practices means aligning those promotional events, using the alignment tool to align them, making sure that everything is completely accurate so that you have your industry standard key performance metrics and KPIs are all very accurate. And then again, of course you're going to have your ERP integration. This includes shipments. So shipments is kind of a different animal. When shipments are shipped out in pallets, but yet at the retailer, they're scanned at eaches. So the pallets then need to be broken out by cases all the way down to eaches. Again, this is done and it's going to be automated for you. So let's talk about the reporting and dashboards. The reporting should all be automated. So what I mean by that is, like, you're going to have an 80-20 rule. 80% of your reports are going to be standardized that you can push out to all retail teams, but then you're going to have 20% that, maybe somebody's doing some data mining, maybe somebody's doing some ad hoc queries and reporting like that. Those will all be available. Those all should be right there available for the users. But this always starts with ROI. If you can't get to the return on investment, you shouldn't do the project. That's what we tell our customers. If you can't get it, don't do it, because return on investment is the key and the core and the starting point for this. And you have to be able to do it across all relevant hierarchy levels, utilizing shipments, consumption, share, ACV, so on and so forth. And with ACV, that can be important to know, when you're looking at retail compliance on the promotion. What was our coverage in certain regions? And implementing industry standard metrics and KPIs. So this should be all transparent to the users. All of this, the events, the promoted product groups, shipments, consumption, all should be completely transparent and automated with minimal maintenance. So the report generation should be scheduled, run, and distributed to all key members of the retail teams. So let's take a look at some examples. This is ROI example, return on investment example. The business objective is to understand the return on investment, your return on investment, and the customer profit. Know that the events are working for both you and the customer, because you want to create a win-win with your business partner through collaboration here. So in this example, and I'm going to kind of expand it a little bit, we're going to look at return on investment for butter and wheat rolls. Those are two promoted product groups. So you'll notice we have a key performance indicator, an arrow that draws our eyes to the downward red arrow. Now at first glance, why is it red? Our return on investment is very good. It's red because the customer had a negative impact. The customer lost on that particular promotion. Same thing below it on 3/31/2012. We had a great return on investment. The customer didn't have such a good return. They lost. On the flip side, for wheat rolls, January 7th, 2012, that promotion, we lost money. The customer made out big time. So, they want to go back to the customer and say, we need to make some adjustments here so that these are win-wins for all of us. Okay, so the second example is the famous BUB chart. In the BUB chart, we want to understand cannibalization, if it's happening across all brands. And we also want to understand, the impact of price versus volume here. So you'll notice in this example, we have three different product groups: biscuits, rolls, and buns. And in this case, we're looking at biscuits on sale, three different occasions here. And we're comparing them to the rolls and buns. Now you see that buns are cannibalized when biscuits are promoted. Right here, here, and here. The interesting thing is there's a little bit of a halo effect for rolls for the January 14th promotion. So I think what we want to do at this point in time is see what the impact was on buns and see if it offset the promotion. It doesn't look like it did, but we may want to dig in a little deeper, especially on the March 10th promotion, because it really impacted buns there. And the third example is the category activity report. This is where we're visually tracking where planned and actual events occur over a one-year period, what tactics are planned, do competitors run activities in parallel, how profitable is each event. So you'll notice here there were several of them that don't look so hot. A few of them, a couple of them here look really good, but there's a few of them that don't look so good. Now we can analyze it and determine that our competitor was in fact running promotions at the same time. And those promotions had an effect on our performance. So maybe we need to go back and take a look and say we need to make some adjustments to these promotions. We don't necessarily want to just stop the promotions, but we definitely want to take a look and see how we need to adjust the promotion so that these numbers, these negatives, are reversed. We feel that the post-event automation analytics system has a very quick return on investment and a very high return on investment. As a matter of fact, we think it's uncharacteristically high with an almost immediate payback period. So the system is designed to deliver margin-building insights. That's what it's designed for. It's designed for one thing, to improve revenue, improve profits, period, blank, that's it. And it's going to shift thousands and thousands of man-hours from manual production and data collection to an automated solution and value-added analysis. That's really important. One of our customers estimated that it shifted over 20,000 man-hours from the manual task of gathering all of this data, trying to piece it together, only to have about a 20 to 30% coverage. And it should serve as the scorecard and overall archive of event-level trade performance. So, you're going to have history in there. Typically, you're going to have a couple of years' worth of history. So, you can track the performance over the years to determine, what's happening with, in today's economy with those very same promotions that maybe you're running blindly over the years. It also has to be designed to scale and for the long haul. So this isn't a Band-Aid that's going to last 1 or 2 years. This is a 10-plus year system that we're looking at. And let me show you an example. Now, this came from a customer. So what they are seeing is a minimum of a 2% annual revenue benefit from the post-promotion automation and analytics system. So in this example, we're looking at $1 billion in annual trade spend. They're saving $2 million a year in what they term as revenue benefit. That means getting rid of promotions that have a negative return on investment and reinvesting in promotions that are successful. So the 5-year benefit is $10 million. They also had said that they reinvest the $2 million into more profitable and new events that gave them sales increases of, on average, $5 million a year. So they saved $2 million in the revenue benefit and $5 million in sales increases. So over a 5-year period, that added up to $50 million, plus the revenue benefit. You're looking at about a $60 million return on that investment in a 5-year period. So that concludes the webinar, and we'd like to open it up for some questions. Karen, do we have any questions?
I have one question here that is relating back to the event alignment tool, and the customer wants to know, how do companies currently align events with their promotions if they're not utilizing this automated tool?
Typically, one of two things: either they're not, and they're coming up with inaccurate results, or it's so difficult to do that they're doing only for a very small sampling of promotions. So maybe 5 to 20% of all promotions are actually aligning. at the most. So yeah, it's a big problem out there.
Our next question was, how do you measure baseline and incremental?
Yeah. Okay. That comes up quite often, that question does. Baseline can be measured in a couple different ways. The syndicated data providers have a baseline measurement. Some customers like that, some don't like it. We have our own that can be used, and we think it's more accurate. The problem with the syndicated data providers is they use a smoothing mechanism where they're basically gathering point-of-sale data. It's more of a sampling, and then they kind of extrapolate that out across the entire country. So it's not all that accurate. We have our own. I'm not going to get into the details of what that is on this call. We don't have enough time. But ours is, we think is a bit more accurate, but customers have the choice in those cases.
Another question was, will there be a follow-up demo?
Yes, we will have a follow-up demo that will get into more detail on the product side, basically how all of this is accomplished. There will be another follow-up demo on that. That is correct. I see one other question. What if you can't get point-of-sale data, either from the retailer or from syndicated data providers? That's a problem. I mean, we do need to measure it against actuals. So those actuals have to come from someplace. So we need to talk about that and figure out how we're going to get those actuals. In a lot of cases, you can get them directly from the retailer, and a lot of the retailers don't charge for that. So, that's something that we can talk about at another time, but actuals, we need to have those, or you can't really measure the effectiveness of your promotions.
And lastly, Rob, they wanted to know if this was going to be recorded.
It is being recorded, and it will be available on our YouTube channel. Karen will send out an email to everybody so that you know where to go to find the recording.
Okay, well, thanks, Rob. That was a great overview. I think we all learned a lot and can easily see the benefits of automating and analyzing our promotions. If you're interested in having a more in-depth look at our post-promotion analytics application, be sure to contact myself or register online for our next live demo. We also invite you to download our white paper, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel, or simply give us a call. We thank you again for joining us today for this informational webinar. We hope you found the information helpful. We appreciate your time and value your feedback, so please send us your comments on how you liked the webinar or how we can improve upon it for the future. Thanks again, and have a great day.